Good morning or good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this presentation. A little bit different this year. Our professional learning day is not in person, but rather virtual. So I would like to welcome everybody back to the 2020-2021 school year. While we're not all together at Eastern or our new auditorium at Cheney High School, it's still an opportunity for us to gather today for a welcome back. And a reminder of the importance of the us and we, the together in our work. The picture that you see was at a PLD at Eastern, and I've thought about this many times recently, what I wouldn't give for the opportunity for us to be able to gather together our certs, our classified staff, to be able to learn together, to be able to discuss teaching and learning in our work. But that's not where we're at this point. But a good reminder of where we've been, and we will be back there at some point. I wanted to start with this today as well. I try to remind people of the importance of being able to get away, being able to rest, relax as you prepare for the upcoming school year. And we talk about it within our administrative team as nowhere to go and nowhere to be. This is a picture from my back deck. And although it's not somewhere far away, sometimes sitting out on that back deck, looking at the sunset, just gives you that opportunity to clear your mind, to clear your thoughts as you prepare for the upcoming school year. So my hope is that each of you has had the opportunity to be able to get away this summer, spend time with family, to rest, to relax in preparation for the upcoming school year. I want to begin with our mission. While the approach to how we accomplish our mission may be a little bit different this year, the mission is still the same. And I want to remind us of that. And I've said that many times. And so the mission within Cheney Public Schools is still the same. So Cheney Public Schools exists to guarantee a safe and caring environment where all students learn at high levels and graduate with options for post-secondary education, careers, and civic engagement. Generally on PLD, we're focused a lot on our professional learning communities and our work. This is one of the things I've been struggling with the most. Most likely, we would have had some type of a hybrid event this year. Most likely, we would have tried hard to get Mike Matos to come into our district to continue our work, but things changed in March. And it is what it is at this point, but our PLC work is still an important aspect of what we do. And those 4 questions are still important to what we try to do for our students. What do we want our students to learn? How do we know they have learned it? How do we respond when they have difficulty? How do we respond when they have learned? So those 4 questions still guide our work. And I think our PLC teams were a big part of our success last spring, our ability to work together as grade levels and content teams to address the situation. So while the PLC work may look slightly different today, it's still our focus and it is not going away. I wanted to start today with a little bit of where we've been and then get into where we're going. The where we've been, and I want to make sure and say thank you to everybody. Nobody signed up for what we're dealing with within this pandemic, within education, within our communities, but we met the challenges this past spring, and I was so very proud of our collective effort, our teachers, our support staff, our classified, our certificated, everybody rallying together to meet the needs of our students and our community. Our central office team who put in countless hours supporting everyone during 69 days that we were out of school in a statewide school closure. As we think about where we were and where we're heading, I just wanted to spend a little bit of a time this morning and today on where we've been timeline and things that I will never forget as I look back on where we've come from. And so that March 13th, that first date that you see there, I remember sitting at the ESD with Mr. Arlt, several other superintendents, a phone call with the governor's office, a phone call with somebody from Department of Health, and all these questions around, is school gonna close or not, asking for multiple weeks to be able to figure this out within our region. And then later that day, the governor's announcement that schools would be closed on March 17th. I remember March 15th, our team coming together, so administrators and classified directors and others to begin to plan, like, okay, what does that mean? What does this look like for us as we move forward now that there's a statewide school closure that was announced through April 27th? So that was a Sunday, coming together to have those initial conversations about that. I remember on the 15th making the decision to close school on the 16th, which was supposed to be the last school day for the school year, or excuse me, until April 27th. But we made the determination to not open on the 16th. I remember March 22nd, it's a Sunday as well, coming up to the district office, meeting with central office team as we prepared for those first optional lessons that were going to be available to our parents and students. I remember March 23rd when that became live, right? We provided optional activities and lessons for students 1 week after we had experienced a statewide school closure. What an amazing effort by everyone to be able to come together to make that happen. I remember March 24th, and specifically, I remember sitting in bed that morning, and it had been, almost 2 weeks into this, and I remember receiving a message from Monty, Syrie, an encouraging message, and I remember reading that, and it had been a crazy couple of days, and a week to 10 days. And I remember sitting there, laying there in bed that morning, and I cried. I remember that I had finally reached that point where, I had broke with everything that was happening within all of the pressure of a statewide school closure and the struggles of our kids not coming back and the struggle of school being closed and Monty's positive message that morning lifting me up. I remember that same morning I received a phone call from Randy from Freeman. He's a superintendent, Randy Russell, just calling to check on me. Hey, Rob, how you doing? And I know that's not a coincidence. I know that same morning Mike Dunn called to check to see how I was doing. But all of the pressures that were mounting as all of these things were happening had caught up with me. And I'll tell you, I'm not an emotional person. I don't cry a lot. But that particular time, it caught up with me and things were like kind of coming to a head. And I remember March 30th when we had actual learning that was occurring that was not just optional. We had said we're moving forward as a school district, and our Google Classrooms, and we put that work together, and our teachers and classified, and everybody had worked so very hard in our central office to make that a reality on March 30th, like just 14 short days after the school closure. April 27th, that was the day we were supposed to come back. That was the day that the state had announced we're going to stay closed until then, and then we'll make a determination afterwards. And I remember on the 27th when the governor had announced that we're going to extend the closure, and just that empty feeling that the school year is not going to return, and just how that felt on that particular day. And I know many of you felt that same thing. May 31st, believe it or not, during phase 1, I had not left Airway Heights, Cheney, Four Lakes, our school district area. I had stayed within this region. May 31st was the first time I'd actually traveled outside of our school district, and I remember that vividly. June 10th, reopening plan released by OSPI. A big day because we're all thinking about how do we reopen our schools and the importance of that. June 19th, the end of the school year. And then of course, August 3rd, we had promised our community, our staff, our families that we would have a reopening plan. And then now September 8th, as we prepare to begin in distance learning. This was something that was created by my daughter, Rose. One of those things from where we were that I won't ever forget as well. I remember putting this in the window in my car, driving through Snowden, waving at teachers. I remember putting this in the window of my car and driving through the high school loop, waving at staff. Just a reminder of the importance during this whole thing of us, we together. And that's what helped get us through, right? That's the importance of what we do in Cheney Public Schools. We are a team. This is not about individuals. This is about us collectively and the importance of that. Right, that was a lot of deep information and thinking back and looking back. So we need to lighten things up a little bit. So I'm going to share a video from Mr. Tatham having a little bit of fun at Mr. Roettger's expense, which is okay. Continuous Learning 1.0. So I'm going to share this with you this morning.
This is for the children. I've been working on the computer all the live long day. I've been working on the computer even though it's a sunny day. Can't you hear Rob Roettger calling? He left a 2-page update. I got kicked out of my Zoom call, but summer's just a month away.
I know some of you are probably singing along right now, so thank you, Mr. Tatham, for that. That was excellent. A little bit more levity as we're thinking about things today. I remember reading the newspaper at one point this spring, and this was an ad that was there, or this was a cartoon. Congratulations, parents, on successfully completing the teacher appreciation course. So look at the homeschooling your kids during the pandemic shutdown. Many of those things as our families took on increased roles within their students' education during the statewide school closure. So some of those things that we all had to deal with. Zoom meetings, right? That was a big part of our life this spring and continues to be. I didn't tell our administrators I was actually going to take this photo, but this is where we've been as well, right? Many Zoom meetings. You can look at the excitement on everybody's face as Mr. Roettger is talking through one of our leadership council meetings. And so we've all been there. We've all spent many hours on Zoom throughout the spring and during this pandemic. Some of the things I'm never going to forget with where we've been either. So on the one side, you see a napkin, and that's from Elliot, our youngest son. And so he may have struggled a little bit with getting work done on time, and so left mom a note saying, "The second hour of homework is done, mom." And I just thought that was the cutest thing when I came home that evening to see that he had been working on his assignments to get them done. And then on the other side, Mr. Sangailo sent me this, and this was from one of our families at Windsor, and they had shared a photo of their dog with an us, we together. And so it was one of those times as well, pretty similar to Monty's message, that it was a time where I needed to see something positive and hear something positive. And so Vince shared that and how important that was at that time. That's something I will never forget. Images like this, right? This is where we've come from, and this is something we won't forget either. And probably in many of your households, and definitely within our families, within our schools and communities. So this is a photo of my daughter Rose helping Elliot with his math. So yes, Mrs. Dryden, it wasn't Mr. Roettger doing the math, it was Rose helping Elliot. So many families in this same situation we know have struggled and gone through this past spring, working to do their best to work through this situation. And while there may have been difficult times, the mission remained the same, and it remains the same today. I love looking at those graduation photos. Graduation was much different this past spring, but there were some very neat things that occurred because of the changes that actually happened. And so I'm going to share some of that information with you today. But again, the mission remains the same. How we get there might look different temporarily, but the mission is the same. And so I go back to that mission statement, and at that very end point, all students learn at high levels and graduate with options for post-secondary education, careers, and civic engagement. That's still the goal. That's still what we're working toward as an entire system. I remember this particular day vividly. Troy, administrative team, high school graduation. I believe Jim Allen from the Spokesman was there that particular day. And so having the opportunity to see Chris's little sister present him with a diploma. So there were many difficult things that were happening this spring. It was a non-traditional end to the school year, graduation, all of those types of things. But there was some great work that came out of this. And this is one of those moments, right? How often do you get a sibling to be able to present a diploma to her brother? And you'll see others as you see family members being able to share that moment with their graduate. I thought that was so amazing and so awesome, and just a big part of our work this spring. So it might not have looked the same, but many positive outcomes because of this. Additional photos of families sharing that moment with their child. You know it was a long closure because I don't remember Trey having a full beard before we started, but by graduation, Trey had a full beard. And then to see the Potters on the other side, another example of our work this spring and celebrations of success and accomplishment. Three Springs High School, class of 2020. I remember vividly that day as well. It was cold. All of you who were there, it was like 42 degrees. I was waiting for snowflakes to fall at any moment. It rained the whole time. But what an amazing event at Three Springs High School. And Josh there, the graduates on the fence. It was just an amazing day to celebrate our Three Springs High School graduates as well. And another slide of the Three Springs High School graduation. And of course, some other photos from graduation. The football field painting was also painted at Three Springs. Students, graduates throwing in their caps like we always see. That's an amazing piece of it. Some of the drive-through events that we had throughout graduation. So there's another couple photos from there. It seemed like everything we did this past spring, it rained, but the rain couldn't stop the excitement and the success of those events. We had some amazing events that were planned by staff and participated in by staff, and just great ways to celebrate the accomplishments of our seniors. Rain could not dampen our spirits. And as we look at graduation and as we think about getting kids to the finish line with options, this is a P12 entire system. That's what it takes to get our students where they need to be. And I want to remind us of that. I share these things every single year. I share graduation videos, I share photos, but it's a reminder that it's all of us to get our students and support our students throughout P12 to get to that point. And those are great examples that I just shared of us reaching our mission together, right? It's the us, we, together piece. And we have the right team in Cheney Public Schools to continue to do this, to continue to meet our mission, to continue to support all students, even during this challenging time. I believe that wholeheartedly. We have the right team to be able to do those things. So I've talked about where we've been. Where we are heading is the next step and the important piece. It's good to remember, but that's the past. Now it's about moving forward. And for me, it's about rising to the challenge yet again. I know our staff is going to rise to the challenge. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it again, even during distance learning, phase in, all of those different stages that we'll talk about, right? We're going to go above and beyond for our families because that's what our families and students deserve. Many of our families are struggling right now with childcare, with schedules, with all of those things because of the current situation. And we are going to go above and beyond as a system and together for our students and families. And we have to remember, this is temporary, right? Where we are today with this situation, distance learning, all of these things, this is temporary. We can do this. We can work through this together. And it's going to take flexibility and sacrifice and a willingness to do whatever it takes as an entire system. And I want us to remember those types of things. At times, it's going to be hard, right? At times, it's going to seem like we're asking too much. But this is for students and families, and we can do this. We can do this together. Reopening plans, and I've shared this several times, and you've seen the conditional plan. Sometimes it feels like we're operating under the Crayola plan that's on the other side. But rest assured, we have a conditional reopening plan, and we're working hard to continue to implement. We're going to begin the year in phase 3. We're going to begin the year in distance learning, but knowing there's the opportunity to move forward with additional on-site opportunities for students. I wholeheartedly believe and know we will be back in school at some point. We'll start to phase in, right? We're going to have some students coming back on September 14th, small numbers. We're going to begin to phase in as things continue to get better. We will be back completely at one point someday. It's going to happen, right? This is a temporary piece again, right? So someday we will be back completely. Things will get better. I want to show an example of how things are already getting better as we look at and analyze the COVID situation within Spokane County. So just a couple weeks ago, August 6th, 223 cases per 100,000. Things were looking pretty bleak. The next week, August 13th, 201. So it's getting a little bit better. A week later, right? August 19th, 151 cases per 100,000. So the numbers are trending in the right way. 75 and above is considered high COVID activity, but we've gone from 223 to 151 in a matter of weeks. And if everybody continues to do the things that we should and numbers continue to come down, then we'll be able to reopen our schools according to our conditional reopening plan. And that's exciting. That's what we want. That's what everybody wants as we move forward. And so I want to end with this today. I want to say thank you. I want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank you for the grace that you have demonstrated toward one another, toward our central office, toward our community, just in general. I want to thank you for your flexibility. This year is like a year like no other. We're going to have to be flexible. We're going to have to be willing to do things we may not normally do during a regular school year. So I want to thank you for your flexibility, willingness to help out a teammate, willingness to do something to help out the system to be able to meet students and families' needs. I want to thank you for your care, your concern, your love, your support of our students and families. That's what we're about in Cheney Public Schools. And I want to thank you for your willingness to do whatever it takes to meet the needs of our students and families. So although this year is going to look different than past years, 2020 and 2021 is going to be a great school year. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for all of your support of our families and students. And thank you for being a member of Cheney Public Schools. Take care.